As Sarah mentioned, Iran today is, I would say, the center of much which is written about the Middle East today. And the events which we witnessed only this week, the attack on the storages of missiles in Syria, and later what Prime Minister Netanyahu revealed, his archive, definitely are milestones in some way to somewhere, which I don't know because I'm not a prophet, but the drums of war already could be heard if you listen carefully. How far the war is, how big will it be, how devastating we expect it to be, this is still unknown. But the acceleration of events through the last months and the magnitude of events which raises every time definitely gives the line, and the line is escalation. Yet, I don't know where it will come, to, and at what point both sides, means Israel and Iran, will stop in order not to arrive the point of collision. Because, as much as I assume, nobody wants a real big collision between the two states. However, I think that we should start looking at Iran from a different angle. Usually people, especially in this part of the world, look at Iran as a regime, rogue regime, religious, ayatollahs. Everybody hears the death to Israel, death to America, the big Satan, the small Satan. The demonstrations, how they crashed the demonstrations, as happened in 2009 and recently since December. These ayatollahs who keep inciting against the world in general, against America in particular, and Israel. Those who send terror to all over the Middle East, to Iraq, to Syria, to Lebanon, to Hezbollah, Yemen, of course. By the way, the next door, they will have soon an event about Yemen, the Forgotten War. So, okay, so Iran is there as well, in the next room, not only this. So just look at this, at one time, here in Washington, D.C., at least in 2 rooms, there are discussions about Iran. Okay, this is how this state actually is viewed as a problem, not only to the Middle East, but maybe here as well. And missiles which can arrive, London already, and with some more fuel they can get to New York, and Washington maybe as well. Okay, all these things which we usually talk about, and this is the media, and the analysts, and more or less this is the context which Iran is being mentioned, I would say, during the last 3 years, more or less, 4 years. I don't know which point to start with, but the history, the short history which we remember, this is what Iran in our mind is. And yes, I don't deny it. Everything is correct. And definitely Iran today, in my view, sends 2 tentacles. One, the northern one, in order to engulf Saudi Arabia, Jordan and Israel from the north, through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. I'll show you the map. And the southern tentacle, which is actually Yemen. And when you engulf the Middle East from north and south, here you are. This is the map of what I'm talking about. This is Iran. Iraq is already controlled to a large extent by Iran, Syria and Lebanon, and this is the northern corridor to the sea, to the Mediterranean Sea. And here we are with Yemen in the devastating war over there, which also is influenced heavily by Iran. So everything in the middle between the north and the south, Oman, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Jordan and Israel, of course, are between the 2 tentacles or the grip of the Iranians, and they are trying to crack everything inside in order to take over the Mashrek, the eastern part of the Middle East. And yes, we don't even hide this intention, because I'll show you a document, just remember that I have it. In 2006, a student of mine found a pile of documents in Lebanon, and he brought it to his teacher, to myself. This is an original document by Hezbollah, Sad al-Wilaya, this is the name of the publication. This is Daf Parashat HaShavua of Hezbollah. I don't know how to say it in English. The weekly page of Hezbollah of 2006 March. And here Khamenei is shown, and he is here quoted Al-Imam Khamenei, 25th of March 2006, 3 months before the war. And here he says, it is quoted in Arabic, that the strategic depth of the Iranian people extends to Palestine, to North Africa, to the Middle East or Near East, to Central Asia, and to the Indian subcontinent. Okay, this is clear translation. Ladies and gentlemen, he is talking, means this quotation exactly means this. The North Africa, which is this, the Middle East is this, Palestine is of course Israel, Central Asia is Afghanistan, Pakistan, and to the east, all the way to India, the Indian subcontinent. As it said in Megillat Esther, Mehodu ve'ad Kush. In the book of Esther, from India to Africa. Exactly what is mentioned there. Here it is. It's actually the dimensions of the old Persian Empire, which they are trying to reconstitute. And just to give you the map, the Persian Empire was more or less these dimensions. And I can show you the Persian Empire, which is exactly what he is speaking about. North Africa, Central Asia, Middle East, and Central Asia, and all the way to India, the Indian Gulf. Okay, this is what they try to reconstitute as some kind of renewing their life as it was until the 7th century. Okay, so this is, we should take them sometimes on face value. If they say something, they mean it. And this is exactly what he meant by saying what I quoted. Okay, so this is, I'm not sure that usually people are based on documents, but this document is, I put it on the internet, everybody knows it. However, I would like to talk about Iran from a different angle. Not the regime, and not what it does to other countries. I want to talk about more domestically about what happens inside Iran. This is actually the map of Iran. And this map, everybody should bear in mind, because this map actually tells us the story of Iran. Claire, nice to see you. Thank you for coming. Claire Lopez, for those who do not identify. Iran is an artificial state created by Britain and Russia almost 100 years ago. Borders marked arbitrarily by the colonialists. And Iran is a state which includes some 40 ethnic groups. 40. Persians are a bit more than a half. And the others are Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, Baluch, and Luris, Kashkais, and of course the Persians are in the heartland. Turkmens, Gilyakis, okay? There are many more. And I have this strange feeling that most of us didn't hear about these ethnic groups at all. It means that there is no consolidated society in this part of the world. is an artificial state based on a conglomerate, means many groups which never became one group. Unlike in this country, in the United States of America, which was made by individuals who migrated to this country as individuals, or the maximum nuclear families, father, mother, and children, and they live together and serve together and go to the school together and the university together and share the public sphere together and walk to the workplace together. So after a generation or two or three, the melting pot works. Maybe not totally, because, okay, we know about all kinds of groups which find it a bit hard to mingle or to dissolve into the American society, but definitely the American society is a sort of success of some melting pot, which with the generations works very well. And the biggest or the most significant proof is the marriage. Look at the patterns of marriage after 3 generations. Usually, couples do not even remember or do not even know where the great-grandfather came from. Russia? Poland? Well, or maybe, okay, this is what I mean. And this is a melting pot. This is why the American nation is a nation which was made by all kinds of people who came from all kinds of places in the world, and together made the American nation on the American idea of, or American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which everybody, almost everybody, shares. In the Middle East, groups like Turkmens, Azeris, Persians, and so forth, these 40 groups of Iran, live there together. They live there forever. They never went through a process of migration. They live within themselves for centuries, if not millennia. They preserve their languages, their mindset, their traditions, their national identity. And not only this, the hatred to the other groups, which at some point in history attacked us or did something to us. And this is the Middle East. I think this is the source of all evil in the Middle East, because Iraq is the same. Iraq is divided according to tribal lines and ethnic lines like Arabs and Kurds, and religious lines like Muslims and Christians and Yazidis and all the others. 10 religions only in Iraq. And sectarian groups like Sunnah, Shia, and Christian dominations and so forth. And they never made a nation, neither in Iraq, nor in Syria, nor in Libya, nor in Yemen, nor citizens, yes. They are citizens of the same state because this is the only identity card which they can have. But to marry each other as some kind of mingling with each other and become one unit, it never happened. And this is what I would say the source of all evil in the Middle East, because the state, the artificial states, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, and Iran as well, is trying all the time to impose its ideas as the state on all the groups, tries to merge them together to one nation, to act as a nation, while every group wants to preserve its own identity, culture, language, history, okay? And actually the state, therefore, in all these countries become the enemy of most of the groups, because usually the state represents one minority. It's the Dulaimis of Saddam until 2003, it's the Alawis in Syria until this very day, who are viewed as infidels, sheer infidels. They are idol worshippers, really. If you look at the religion, definitely. It's the Hashemite family in Jordan, which also has the genetic problems of the Middle East. It is the Gaddafi, or the Gaddafi Dam, actually, the name of the tribe of Gaddafi. Gaddafi Dam means the one who sheds blood. And according to all the stories in Libya, they got the name for a reason. Okay? In Yemen, the tribe of Ali Abdullah Saleh imposed itself on everybody else. So this is why the state, which is actually one minority, which takes the whole place by force, is viewed as illegitimate. So the regime is illegitimate. The state is illegitimate to begin with because it was created by the British or by the French or by the Italians when it comes to the Libyan case. So the state is illegitimate, the regime is illegitimate, so the state is the enemy. By definition. Okay, we live because we want to live. بدنا نعيش, as they say in Arabic. We want to live, so we don't mess with them. Until we do, until we burst the streets, until we try to. Then this is what the Arab Spring, what people hope that it will be an Arab Spring, became an Arab disaster. Okay? Iran bears the same problems because Iran is this conglomerate of groups which never became one nation, citizens yes, but not a nation, and the state is the enemy. This is why the state has to be, or must be, a dictatorship, because nobody wants them. As long as the Shah was there, until the end of 1978, it was a secular dictatorship with the slogans of nationalism, Iranian nationalism, as if this nationalism settled in the hearts of the people and replaced all the traditional loyalties. It never did. But this was the slogans which some elite followed. But the people didn't vote. This is why he was kicked out, because the people didn't want him. He was corrupt, yes, he was vicious, yes. But he never succeeded to settle in the hearts of the people. And now they have the religious dictatorship of the mullahs. Again, nobody wants them. Maybe 5% of the population really identifies with their goals of Islamism and what they want to impose on people. And you know, there is a rule in sociology. Whenever you try to force something on a population, they want the opposite. Whenever. And we have in the Middle East two examples. Turkey, when the modern Turkey, which was established in the 20s, on the hands of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, he tried to force secularism. He closed all the madrasas. He took the tarbush from the heads of the men, tried to unveil the women. He took all the, even divorce and marriage from Sharia courts to civil courts. You know, he almost abolished any manifestation of Islam. That's what he wanted to do. He thought that Islam is some kind of obsolete, something which Turkey, if Turkey wants to be a modern state, it should follow Europe, secular Europe, Britain, France and so forth. So he oppressed any religious manifestation in Iran, changed the script from Arabic to European-like, and he forced it by force. What's the result? That the Turkish actually are getting back to Islam. And already in the 90s, Erbakan was chosen because of the secular oppression, and now Erdogan, another Islamist. So when you force people to secularism, they go back to religion. If you force religion on them, as it is today in Iran since 40 years, since they came to power, people are hedonistic, permissive, and if you really want to know what happens in the Iranian scene, or the scene in the streets, you can look at them. The gays and lesbians scene in Iran, which is flourishing, permissive. How many Iranian or Persian, or not only Persian, Iranian sex websites? Tremendous. Because it's forbidden. Means they can do it. But when the regime tries to force something, people go to the other side. In Turkey it was secularism, people went to religion. In Iran it's about religion, and people go to secularism. Every weekend they have a whole thousands of tents in the park to the north from Tehran. And in every tent there is a couple reading Pushkin for the whole day, because a man cannot walk into a hotel in Iran with a lady who is not his wife and rent a room, like your secretary or your girlfriend. So they buy a tent and they go to the park, spend the whole day in the tent, reading books, of course, and in the evening they go home. Okay? Thousands! And the regime does nothing, because let them do whatever they like and leave us alone. As long as they don't demonstrate against the regime, let them read books in these tents for the whole day. Okay, this is Iran. And the regime lets them do whatever they like as long as they don't demonstrate it. So the scene in the street is almost totally secular. Of course, we know that they have to cover part of their head, and today they burn it. And this is actually what happens in Iran. People hate the regime, and the regime, in my view, feels that they live on borrowed time. Both because of the makeup of the state, which never became a nation, and because nobody wants this ruling dictatorship, which stole the country 40 years ago almost. And this is the situation. Now, the economic situation definitely works against whatever they like, because the currency deteriorated, I think, like 30% since the beginning of the year. And today, in order to buy $1, you have to take a whole suitcase of local currency. Okay, so this is the inflation. And here, I think everybody criticizes the former administration for giving them the money and the agreement about the nuclear agreement, which actually gave some investments. Okay. The men in the street didn't see a penny out of the money which came from the world and from this country. Penny. They had expectations. And they saw nothing. That is actually what was behind the demonstrations which we saw as of last December, which is like last five months, where they burned many police stations and besieged stations. And this actually, frustration is not something which comes from the situation. Frustration is something which comes from the expectations. If your situation is low, and you know it is low, and it will be forever low, you don't have any expectations, so you're not frustrated. Like the situation in Egypt. The economy in Egypt is as low as could be. People live in ashwaiyat, means the unplanned neighborhoods with no hope. So no hope, no nothing. So they live there where they live for who knows how many years. Once you have expectations to change, and these expectations are not fulfilled, now you are frustrated. And now you go to the street. Okay? So in Iran, yes, they had high expectations because of the agreement and the whole world, which apparently was standing in line to start investing in Iran, and the oil industry and gas industry and everybody and all the industries in Iran. And nothing really happened to the economy. And later the money came from here and the cash. And what? Where is all the money? Either went to the corrupt officials of Iran or went to terror in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. Okay, so the men in the street had expectations, and that's why they ran to the streets since last December, because of those unfulfilled expectations. So this is what happened. And the mullahs know exactly what happens in the street. They have very good barometers to feel what happens there. In my view, Iran lives on borrowed time. Iran will implode, just like what happened with the Soviet Union. Because the Soviet Union was another state which was built on slogans which nobody believed in, especially fraternity of nations, as one of them, as we say in Hebrew, achvat amin. And, it means the Uzbeks and Kazakhs and the Armenians and the Azeris and the Ukrainians and the Estonians and the Latvians and Lithuanians and all these nations which made the Soviet Union, as if everybody sits around one fire and sings Kumbaya together. This is the impression of which they tried to create all those years. But it was hollow. It was only a slogan. Behind the scenes, Kazakhs remain Kazakhs, and Russians remain Russians, and the Chechens remain Chechens, and the Ukrainians remain with their own identity, and everybody remained what it was. So the whole state of one nation, as if the Soviet Union was a fraud, was only deception, was a slogan. It was not real. And this is why it fell apart according to ethnic lines. And now we have like 15 countries, which are more or less ethnic countries. Okay, Lithuania and Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Armenia, all these countries which everyone is based on one major group. Okay, they have some minorities, Abkhazia in Georgia, or the state which has still problems is Ukraine. Because in Ukraine there are still two major groups, the Ukrainians and the Russians. And as long as these two groups will be in the Ukraine will not be stable totally as Kazakhstan, for example. Okay, so this is what ethnicity is alive and kicking, and in some places killing as well. Yugoslavia fell apart also according to ethnic lines. Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, okay, all these countries now they are peaceful. And now most of the tourism of Europe goes to ex-Yugoslavia. As long as it was one state, they needed a dictator, Tito. Okay? Once they are divided to ethnic states, every state lives its life by itself and doesn't stick its nose to other issues. So they live in peace with each other. And now tourists are the best indicator for stability, because tourists do not come to any place which is not stable. No tourist wants to get killed in the streets because some riots. Okay, whenever they hear something, they run away. Tourists are the first not to come. So when you see Croatia and Serbia are today hubs for tourism, you know that these are stable states, unlike what it was in the 90s, in the aftermath of Tito. So this is how the world behaves. Multinational states are unstable. In many cases are dictatorships, like the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, Iran, and the time or the days are numbered, years are numbered. In the Soviet Union it was 70 years. I don't know when Iran will come to its end as a united state. It could be a year, could be 5, could be 10, I have no idea. But in my view, one day, and most of us, if not all of us, who sit in this room, will see the fragmentation of Iran, in my view, along ethnic lines, because these lines remain alive until this very day, and the map actually shows the major groups of Iran. And apparently, if the regime is pushed by sanctions or by all kinds of other actions which can be taken by other countries, this will hasten the process of fragmentation of Iran. And in my view, it will be a blessing for the world, just like what happened with the Soviet Union, which was divided, and the Cold War of those days finished. Okay, today we have some issues with rabid Russia, but the Soviet Union for, let's say, at least 15 years, was not a problem anymore, because they created, 15 nice, peaceful countries were created, and look, one of them even, the Israeli oil is coming from one of them. Okay, this is how peaceful they are. And this country is actually Islamic. So what? But they are peaceful countries, so they have no problem to supply Israel with oil to that extent. Okay, so this is what I mean by the process of the world, that multinational or multi-ethnic countries do not have long prospects to live as unit, or they live as a unit only as long as they are a successful dictatorship on the price of human rights, political freedoms, and so forth, what we see today in Iran. So this is the situation in Iran, and in my humble view, all we have to do is either wait or act in order to encourage groups like the Baluchis, this in the southeast, this one, and the Kurds in the northwest, because there is a latent war, constant latent war in these districts. Also the Arabs in Khuzestan and in the other district here, they write in Arabic, and I'm in connection with some of them, they consider themselves as occupied territories. Ever since 1925, since they were annexed to Iran. Arabs in Iran consider themselves as occupied. And this is how they talk. The oil industry and the gas is under their feet. Means the Iranian oil comes from the Arab parts of Iran, and the Arabs see nothing out of it, because everything is taken to the Persians who control the country, and the Arabs, all they have is the fumes from the refineries, which they have to inhale, because this is what they have in their areas. Rivers are polluted because of this oil industry, which is in their district. Genetic problems which come from air pollution and water pollution are tremendous within the Arabs in Iran. Who knows about this? Who cares about this? But this is what happens. And they want to be liberated. And amazingly, they are looking for Israeli support. Arabs, occupied by Iran, are trying to get Israeli support for their quest for freedom from the Iranian occupation, as they call it. Every morning starts in this part of Iran with cranes in the streets, hanging people, just for the people, the bypassers to see it and to go to work and be silent. Because the Iranians know, or the Persians know, that this region might be a problem. So the same thing they have in Balochistan, in the southeast, and the same thing they have with the Kurds. There is a war or struggle between the ethnic groups, and an organization like Jundullah is fighting for the freedom of the Baluchis, and the Kurds also try to get rid of them. But there are no journalists in those parts of Iran, because the Iranians do not allow journalists. So there is, I would say, a small war on small flames inside Iran, and if the world supported those minorities, by the way, they are Sunnis. The Kurds and the Baluchis are Sunnah. Another reason why to hate the central regime. And so if the world supported them, maybe we would have been today in the stage of post-Iran, like post-Soviet Union. Maybe, if the sanctions were not lifted, and so forth. Maybe, I don't know. However, this is the situation in Iran, and every country which wants to solve the Iranian problem should invest time, effort, and maybe money as well, in order to undermine the stability of the state and to encourage minorities to act for their freedom. So the same process which the Soviet Union went through and Yugoslavia will be in Iran as well. And this might be for the good of the world. However, I would like to also to relate to what happened this week. Netanyahu showed what he showed, and there now is debate between all kinds of people, whether it's new stuff or old stuff, and I won't get into this debate because much was said to both sides. This is not my issue now. Those who think that this is new can think, those who think that this is not new can think this way. However, I would like to talk about this event of the stealing of the archive from the Iranian point of view. How this thing is viewed from within. And this is usually not discussed neither in the media nor in other arenas here in this country and neither in Israel as well. First of all, from the operational point of view, this is a major success of the Mossad. You know, to get out from Iran with a document which the government would not like you to go out with is not hard. It's not easy at all. Because you might be searched, and if they find you with a document, one document, which you are not supposed to carry out from the country, you are in a big trouble. Imagine half a ton of documents which you cannot hide in your pocket or in your shirt. Okay? You need a truck. Okay? in order to carry half a ton of documents and disks. So, this is one thing. How this truck left Iran, I have no idea. Now there are many stories, especially in the Israeli media, how this operation was. Between you and me, I don't believe anything. Why? In my view, the Mossad now tries to deceive everyone, especially the Iranians, about the real story. So they smuggle or they leak all kinds of stories which are not true. Ladies and gentlemen, we are working, the intelligence is not an easy job. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. By way of deception. Okay? So, I don't read any story. Pity of your time. Don't read stories because whatever, I have a story about how these documents were smuggled, don't believe. Until you see the official, which will be never. Because no real intelligence organization really reveals its methods of work. In my humble view, I'm almost sure that even the CIA doesn't know how Israel obtained those, and many here would do anything in order to know exactly what really happened there, in order to learn from what the Israelis did. And this is, from the operational point of view, is a major, major success. Just imagine that somebody goes into the archives of the American nuclear program somewhere in Virginia here, and they succeed to go in to open all the safes. It's not, the shelves, the safes. To open with nobody hears it, nobody knows it, to load everything on a truck and leave America with a truck full of all those documents. Just imagine. And this is exactly what happened there. Okay? So, now, Iranians are very proud. This is one of the cultural characteristics. What Israel did to them is actually stripping them naked and showing them to everybody. That they could be penetrated, things can be stolen, the most sensitive things which they try to hide from the world, Israel from all the world. Israel came and took, stole. This is something, in my view, they don't find words here to describe their anger and their frustration for being penetrated in such a way by whom? And by Zionist, the little Satan who succeeded to do exactly this. This is to begin with. This is the feeling. In my view, this is how the Iranian regime or the mullahs are walking around since Sunday when Netanyahu revealed it. This one, to begin with. But not only this, not a matter of being penetrated and ashamed, put in shame. It's also a matter of suspicion. Because evidently, for sure, somebody from within helped. You cannot know where this is, you cannot penetrate the place, you cannot open all the safes, especially silently. You can saw a safe, but this makes noise. In order to open it in a silent way, you have to know the combination, or to reconstruct the combination. It means you need somebody from within to show you where the place is, where the safes are, what the combination of the doors is. So you need somebody from within, and maybe somebody's employed from within to support you. So now they start to suspect each other. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no organization which can work when people suspect that their colleagues in the workplace are collaborators with the enemy. Nowhere in the world. And the fact that they suspect each other for collaborating with the Israelis, in my view, paralyzes to extent everything which they do. Because they miss the trust. They are losing trust in each other. And this is another characteristic of a regime on its demise. When people start to suspect that the other one tries to make the situation better because he sees already the end. And here I want to take you 3,000 years ago. Something more or less the same. Joshua is about to enter the Eretz Israel, according to the book of Joshua. And he sends 2 spies to Jericho to spy on Jericho. And these 2 spies go to this lady Rahav, who lives there. And she knows exactly who they are. and she hides them. She doesn't let them sleep in the sleeping room because she is afraid that people will come to search for them and they will find them. So she takes them on the roof and she hides them among hay stacks on the roof. Who sleeps over there? Okay? In order not to be found. And when they leave, she asks them a favor. When you come, please save me and my family. Because I know, that's what she says. You can read it. I know that God gave you the land, and when you come, please save me and save my family. So they said, okay, we'll do it, but hang a red thread on your window so we know which house is this, and collect all your family to your home, because we don't want to go around and look for them. Okay, so that's what she did. She collected everybody to her home, she hung up this red thread, and she took care of herself and her family. And she was saved. What happened in Iran today, apparently, or could be, this is exactly this. People already smell the end. So those who collaborated with the Mossad actually wanted to save themselves by collaborating with the enemy. Because they understand that the whole scheme, the whole regime, is on its way to nowhere. So now they try, just like Rahav in Jericho, to make their own situation better by supporting or by helping the enemy, in this case with the Israelis. Look, could be that those Israelis went made face as if they are not Israelis, like Americans or French or British, because this is also some kind of way how states act in other arenas by pretending they are different states. So imagine that those people who acted for the Mossad in Iran made face as if they are Americans. So now it is America, at least those who collaborated with America. Okay, this could be. I was not there, I was here. I have a full alibi that I was not there. So, but I give only the possible scenarios of what happened there on the ground, because this is how intelligence organizations work. And the Mossad is not made of something different. Okay? So sometimes you appear to be somebody else, and people cooperate with you thinking that you are the somebody else while you are somebody totally different. So this is what happens. So maybe they collaborate with the Americans because they understood that America will take Iran at some point in the future. So why not taking care of themselves by collaborating with America? Okay, by chance it was the Mossad, maybe. Okay, so this is what I mean. And this is, if this is what motivated those collaborators with whoever was there to make their situation better when the day will come, this is definitely an indicator for the fact that these people already feel that the earth is shaking under their feet, the end of the Iranian regime is approaching, and now everyone is by himself. And this is why they collaborate. So this is, I would say, some possibilities of the background of what happened in Iran regarding this event of the smuggling of the archive. And who knows, maybe in the future it will be really revealed. So if you take, in general, the situation of Iran as a shaky state, which needs to be a dictatorship because it is shaky, and what might be caused because of this event with documents, another shake or another blow to this shaky building of the regime, we might, if I'm correct, we might see in the future, in the foreseeable future, I don't know how long this foreseeable future is, we might see major changes inside Iran, which will bring Iran to the ex-Soviet Union situation of ethnic areas, either united with federation, confederation, or totally separate, or totally autonomous, or I don't know. But this is what I predict will happen with Iran and with the regime. Well, again, you can compare it to the Soviet Union. Don't forget that during the 80s, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan occupied. Afghanistan, and maybe this event actually helped or pushed forward the collapse because of the failure. Now, if you see today what happens in Iran, that they spend so much money in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen, the people in the street know it very well. And also the slogans which we heard during December and January mentioned the Iran before Syria, or something like that. Or slogans with, why do you spend the money in Syria? Spend the money on us, here in Iran, we need the money. We want to live. And definitely people know what happens with Iranian money, which is wasted. And you could compare this to the Soviet Union wasting the money and the blood and its energy on Afghanistan rather than taking care of the domestic arena. During the 80s, and of course the end of the 80s, the Soviet Union collapsed. So external intervention might be some kind of projection of power, while within the regime you are rotten. And this is, again, maybe another point which is parallel and maybe even similar between what happened in the Soviet Union and Iran. First of all, this thing about humiliation, honor, and this, it's not so much part of the Western culture, which Russia is more or less part of it. Yes, the Russians do have their pride, which they are very keen to keep and to maintain. Yet, I don't think that it's as big as what happens in Iran. If I look, I don't know so much about the Russian mindset, but in my view, Russians could take some problems, while the Iranians, for them, is much less. However, there is some kind of understanding between Israel and Russia about the red lines, what Israel can do, what Israel is allowed to, what Israel is tolerated, what not. So far, Israel didn't knock any Russian airplane, unlike Erdogan. Israel is too careful, and Israel knows the red lines. And look, and Netanyahu and Putin are having either meetings or phone calls every, month, 2 months. Okay, and this is what we know. We don't know about the phone calls which we don't know, which I believe there are as well. Not every phone call of Netanyahu, we know. So definitely there is some kind of division of roles between Russia and Israel in Syria. We have our red lines, they have their red lines, and we try that the red lines will not cross each other. So the S-300 is look, it's a big system. It's not only missiles, it's also all kinds of radars. Some of them already work in Syria, because the S-5, which they use, and actually not one Israeli airplane, is working with some components of the S-300 system. So it's not the whole system, but some of them work in Syria, and apparently we know about it. I do hope that Israel knows what to do with this system, how to deal with this, and how to act in an arena which this system is present. Yes. Well, in my view, the Europeans want money. This is what motivates them. You know, money makes the world go around. Liza Minnelli, Joe Gray, remember, Cabaret? And this is actually what, in my view, what motivates the Europeans. And let me tell you a secret. During the years of the sanctions, European companies were working with the Iranians behind the scenes through all kinds of agencies or through all kinds of other identity cards, and they worked with the Iranians big time during the years of the sanctions. So when the sanctions are lifted, so they will not, they are standing in line, pushing in line in order to get some pennies from the Iranians because of the money and the investments and so forth. So the Europeans are cynical. The Europeans are, I think that the last thing which they care is the human rights in Iran, and political freedoms and so forth, and all they need is money. This is in harm view. Just yes, I'm more than sure that the Iranians want to take revenge.
Right.
Because they were humiliated. And this revenge is something which they will take. It can take time, month, year, I don't know. But they will do something and claim that they restored their honor, which was damaged by the Israelis, by this thing. And putting in shame is something which usually Persians do not tolerate. Yet, it could take them time. You know, in the Quran there is a verse which says, "Inna Allah ma'a sabirin." Allah is with those who have patience. There is a big difference between something which happens to you and nobody knows, and something which happens to you and everybody sees. Okay? There's a big difference. As long as you know by yourself, for yourself, what happened to you, you swallow the problem and you live with this. Once it is exposed, even if it's old, let's say a year old or 2 years old, now the shame comes. Because as long as it's between you and yourself, you are, of course, you don't like it, but the shame component is not yet accompanying what happened. Once it's exposed, it's in public, this is where shame comes. You must hint to the Saudis and the Emiratis. Look, politics in the Middle East are something which is built on sand dunes. Because the Middle East is full of sand dunes. And sand dunes change their situation according to what we say in Hebrew, matzav haruach. Matzav haruach literally is the situation of the wind. When it does, it's the mood. Okay, they change the mood, but the situation of the wind. Okay, one day it blows to one side, so they are with us. Tomorrow the Iranian threat will be less, so maybe they will not be so fond of Israel. Don't forget that Saudi Arabia and the Gulf Emirates knew about the peace, let's say, which was signed between Israel and Egypt in 1979. Why didn't they join? They knew about the peace between Israel and Jordan from October 1994. They didn't join. Even the Oslo agreements, which allegedly was some kind of a peace between Israel and Palestinians, they didn't join. All of a sudden, what happened? Okay, their fear from the Iranians is bigger than their hatred to us. Okay, so this, but, and look, you have to understand the Saudi mindset. The Saudis are shaking and shivering of fear because of the Iranians. Because of various reasons, some reasons. For example, the Saudis are much closer to Iran, right, beyond the Gulf. And the Gulf is what, 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers? It's nothing. Israel has, at least until recently, has a buffer zone like Jordan and Iraq between us and Iran, so at least we have some kind of distance. So the Saudis are much closer to the problem. Secondly, the part which is closer to Iran is the oil industry of Saudi Arabia. Very combustible, very vulnerable. So, and the Iranians can devastate this whole area in no time with some missiles. Who will go there? Who will send a ship to take any oil from this part of the world? Is some Saudi wells start to burn. Okay, so they are much more vulnerable. Not only this, in that part of Saudi Arabia, there are the Shia, live in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia next to the Iranians. And the Shia, Iran has, or can incite them, and can inflame them, and can make problems. We don't have Shia in Israel. We have Arabs, which are 20% of the Israeli population, are all Sunnis. So Iran, initially, they don't have so much plug-ins into this population, so we can feel more secure. And the last thing is Saudi Arabia is much more attractive because of, fasten your seatbelt, Mecca and Medina. The Iranians do not even hide. They're willing to reinstall the Shi'i caliphate, which was taken from Ali, the fourth caliph, the founder of the Shia, in the mid-7th century. They want to come back to power and to change the history of Islam from Sunni history to Shia history, because this is what they believe that time came. They come out from the earth, resurrection of the Shia, and there is much was written about this, and this is what they want. Israel is no Mecca and no Medina, so Israel is much less attractive for the Iranians. And you can add to this, there are all kinds of rumors about all kinds of capabilities which Israel might have, because there are all kinds of websites which talk about 200, 300 nuclear warheads which Israel have. I don't know if Israel has one, but this is what website keeps copy and paste from another website. So, and the Iranians know how to read from left to right. So they read it and they are more cautious, because you don't mess with a country which has such a stockpile of, allegedly, of nuclear warheads. So if you accumulate all these reasons, the Saudis have many more reasons why to fear the Iranians way more than Israel. However, there is a little cultural difference between us and the Saudis. We Jews, because of our history, because of our experience, whenever we sense a problem, we shout and we scream and we try to shake everything in order to, because our experience, okay, through exile and especially the Holocaust. So we go everywhere, and Netanyahu will go to the Congress in spite of what Obama doesn't want him to go. Okay, so we do what we feel that we should do because of our history and experience. Okay, from the Saudis you don't hear anything. Almost anything, you don't say, you don't hear. How can you explain it? There are many more reasons why to fear the Iranians. Why don't they say anything? And here culture comes to the scene. According to the Bedouin culture, a male, will never show emotions. He will keep poker face. Inside you could be, in a big storm, but his face will stay, he will shoot you. He will hit you, but he will not show emotions. According to their tradition, if a man screams and shouts, he is like a woman. And I ask the pardon of the women here in the room. But this is how they feel. And a man will never be willing to be viewed as a woman who screams and shouts because she is afraid of something. Okay? So this is why the Saudis say nothing. However, after the JCPOA was signed, there was a small, very short article written in Ilaf. It's one of the Arab major websites, online newspaper. The writer was Bandar Ben Sultan. Bandar Ben Sultan was the ambassador here for 30 years. His English is perfect and he knows Washington, blindfold. Okay. He wrote a very short article after the signing of the agreement. He said something like this, and let's paraphrase. Whatever we had to say about this agreement, we have already said. Nobody really remembers. Never mind. Whatever we'll have in the future to say about this, we'll say in the future, of course. As for now, I want only to remind or to tell you, my readers, one thing which I heard from the old fox of the American policy making, Henry Kissinger. He once told me, ... America's enemies should fear America. America's friends should fear America even more. There is nothing worse can be said about America by an Arab. You know what he means? That you are like a beast. You are not a human being, means the Americans. Because if you're a human being, you would treat your friends better than you treat your enemies. But beasts eat each other indiscriminately. Okay? So, you are not human beings. You betrayed us. You pushed us under the bus with a knife in our back after you turned it around. And this is why your friends, means America's friends, as he said, should fear America. more than the enemies, because we expected some support from you, and you betrayed us. And you know, betrayal in the Middle East is something which is beyond anything which is acceptable. Betrayal, as they say, khudlan in Arabic, or khiyana, as it is, this is the worst thing which a man can do. You know, because being loyal is one of the founding concepts of the Middle East. Part of the tribal thinking. If you're not loyal to your tribe, you're ousted. You're ousted. You will get, people will do to you tashmis. Tashmis will send you to the sun, and the sun will kill you. This is somebody who is not loyal. And you Americans, as he wrote, you are not loyal to your friends, and your friends should fear you more than your enemies. In the Arab culture, there is nothing worse which could be said about America by somebody who feels betrayed by America. America's friends should fear America more than their enemies. And very short, but very sharp article. And this is how what the Saudis feel. And all the rest is now they are looking for another party to lean on or to rely on. And Israel is that's the whole thing. Well, don't forget that the Baluchis actually are divided between the Afghanistan, Pakistan and Iran. In Afghanistan they are more or less free because Afghanistan is a dysfunctional state. In Pakistan, less free, but definitely they have their own autonomy, factual autonomy. The Baluchis do almost whatever they like by themselves without any intervention of the central government. Only in Iran they are really oppressed by the local authorities. Look, Baluchis are like, what, 20 million people. And if they succeed to liberate the Baluchi part of Iran, they can make a state out of these three. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like the Kurds also, because Kurds also divided like this. I think that the United States walking out with the JCPOA, and maybe other countries as well, is the nightmare of the Iranian regime. They invested in this agreement years of negotiations and attempts in order to buy time, to buy money, and to buy I would say, the indifference of the world to what happens inside Iran. And now, if a state like that, this is America, walks out, maybe other countries try to change it as well, they, in my view, they will be devastated. Of course, they will not show it, because they don't show emotions, traditionally, but they will have a big blow inside, and maybe it will encourage some minorities, like the Zoroastrians, to run away to the streets in order to shake the system from within. So from outside, like America and maybe other countries as well, and from within, some minorities, especially religious minorities, this can actually cause or bring the collapse of this regime. And I do believe that it will happen in a day which all of us in this room will see it. Ladies and gentlemen,
Inshallah.
let me thank you so much. Have a nice day.